Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Political Ring, where we try to take a more rounded look at politics. We're not left, we're not right, trying to meet in the middle and see if we can work things out. Today, there's one big topic that has to be covered, so I've invited back Jennifer Kirk to have a conversation with me about the problem in Israel at the moment, where Hamas has essentially declared war. Hello again. So, I wanted to get in an expert on the conflict in Israel at the moment between the Israelis and the Palestinians, but I couldn't get one. Funnily enough, they're in high demand at the moment, so I've got in someone who knows more than I do. Welcome back to the show, Jennifer Kirk.
Hello, and it's always a pleasure to sit in here with you.
So, I have to ask the question that will be on everyone's mind at the moment. What is the cause of all this?
If it was simple, then this would have been sorted a long time ago.
Yeah.
Essentially, the problem with Israel and Palestine is that there are competing valid arguments for possession of various places going right back. And throughout history, you're looking at peoples who both have valid claim on these areas, and just what point in time do you take as the datum point to say, oh no, this should belong to X or Y?
Yes, I'm aware that it goes right back beyond the Bronze Age into the Neolithic, essentially. I know about the expulsion of the Jews under the Akkadians, I believe it was, and then the return under Cyrus the Great. I know about Hadrian's destruction of the Second Temple during the Romano-Jewish Wars and things like that. Is that the level that we're having to go back to determine whose land this is?
And the problem is that, if you apply that same logic to other places in the world, you'd have competing claims for Britain and France to be in control of each other. You'd have competing claims for the Welsh to actually be ruling the whole of Britain. It's a very difficult area, and a lot of people have studied that area over time. There's a lot of scholars, there's a lot of information on this, and I will put out there that my knowledge in the main comes from reading books, and you have to remember that every book is written by somebody who may have an underlying I don't want to say bias, but they're looking at it from a certain point of view.
Yeah, from a certain point of view, absolutely. I will say bias, because I don't think we should say that bias is necessarily bad. Everyone has a bias, depending on what they've learned, who they've learned it from, and the way that people put things across. Let's say you've got a very charismatic tutor at school, and they said something in a certain way, and it sticks in your head. That becomes a bias.
Yeah.
Being aware of your bias and trying to counteract it is what we should be trying to do in a society, rather than just saying bias is bad.
Yeah, and to go back to this area, there's religious significance on both sides. In fact, more than just both sides. Obviously, Christianity as well has a lot of historical interest in this area. That's why we had the Crusades. It's a very fought over area, because all these different religious branches all have competing, and you can make a very credible argument for all of them that they are a credible claim. So, you've got the various temples, the holy places, and this is, I suppose, the root of the problem. It would be like having competing claims over the city of Mecca, and you could imagine that would cause huge instability in that area.
Yes.
So, I guess in modern times, a lot of the problems go back to the turn of the last century, and my understanding is that a lot of Jewish people obviously facing a lot of discrimination from all across Europe and beyond. Historically, the Holy Land was the home of the Israelites.
Yes.
So what you found was that people would kind of look to start a new life in the perceived Holy Land. And they were going out there and they were buying land for cultivation of farms, growing things like oranges, olives, that kind of thing. And, they were buying farms legitimately, price agreed, price paid. And over time, and actually over quite a quick period of time, this became an area where there was a high concentration of Jewish people who'd legitimately bought land. And I guess based on the historic mandate that at times in the past it had been the Jewish homeland, look to establish their own government of themselves.
Yes, after the Second World War, Britain, during the destruction of the empire, it pushed very strongly for a Jewish homeland.
Yes, and my understanding from the books I've read is that it wasn't just Britain. There was a lot of the other Allied powers saw this as being a solution. There was a lot of Jewish people who'd been displaced, and maybe if you'd been through the Holocaust in places like Germany, would you really be comfortable going back there post-war? And I
don't think I would, and I'd say this partly because I wouldn't want to go anywhere that had not wanted me, because those people might not be in power anymore, but the people that supported them are still there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be happy. And also, some Jews that did go back to where they'd come from in Germany found that the people that now owned the factories and the houses that they had owned and been forced out of didn't want to give it up.
Yeah, and we're still seeing cases where, for example, artworks that had been taken are still going through court cases to be returned to the original owners. But I guess it was seen as a solution. There was already a high concentration of Jewish people there anyway. It was seen by a lot of Jewish people as being the historical homeland of Judaism.
Which I think we can all agree is quite well supported by history.
Yeah, and this then creates tension because you've also got Palestinian people there, you've got a lot of Jewish people there as well, and you have effectively competing claims on the holy areas.
Yes.
And I guess over time that has built up to what we see today. So, where do you want to go back to? What period in time do you want to go back to as a datum point to say these people have the valid claim on the land? And, it's like, how far do you want to go? The further back you go, it just switches side to side to side, kind of like how Alsace and Lorraine, the regions in France, swapped between France and Germany several times, depending on whether, the Franco-Prussian War, the First World War, the Second World War, and so forth. And, you're looking at lands that both sides see themselves as having a legitimate claim over, and that creates a lot of tension if you can't find a middle ground. And,
yes.
If you have something, but I also have a valid claim on that, but you have a valid claim on it, where does it end? There's always going to be one party that feels aggrieved. And, that is almost a very facile overview of going back far enough, why there's a huge issue in this area. And that's led up to this point where we've seen the Hamas incursion into Israel. And it's, if you spoke to somebody who is sympathetic to the Palestinian side, to Hamas, would say, well, this is what happens when you oppress people, when you treat them like second-hand citizens. It creates a powder keg where it boils over. Then when you talk to Israeli people, they would say, well, we've done nothing wrong, and we didn't instigate anything. They just come in an unprovoked attack. murdering civilian people. This isn't about attacking military targets. There's plenty of evidence, plenty of quite shocking video evidence to show actually just gunning down civilians.
Not just gunning down citizens, specifically targeting civilians. That's the video evidence that I've seen. Going to cars and machine gunning the occupants,
and actually shooting people who were running away.
Yes, this isn't a military thing. They are just terrorists. That's the thing I have to question about. I know where this claim that the left keeps putting out, and I say the left, I understand not everyone on the left, please don't put that in the comments, but a lot of left people keep saying this thing of, oh, Israel's running an apartheid state. I've looked into where that came from. The claim is from one essay from Amnesty International in the 60s that was then thoroughly debunked. But it keeps coming back up. And that seems to be where the support, in the West at least, keeps coming back from. This one claim that's been pushed and pushed and pushed, despite the evidence against it.
Yeah, and you could argue that, a closer to home example of this kind of tension is Northern Ireland.
Yes.
You're looking at two competing claims on an area of land, and there's no effective middle ground to actually make both sides happy. It's one or the other is how it
that is the unfortunate thing, because you're absolutely right with Northern Ireland. I mean, we had the Irish independence, and the people in Northern Ireland, for the majority, wanted to stay with the UK, so they stayed.
Yeah, that's why those counties stayed with the UK.
Yes. And then on that side, it's the ones that are doing terrorism a lot of the time, they want to leave. But with Palestine, it's the other way around. The ones that are doing the terrorism want other people to leave.
Yeah, and you see a lot of friction, but with nothing that I think Northern Ireland is probably
the
closest comparable to what it's like in there. But you're talking about the Israel and Palestine. It's like the worst period of the Troubles, but 10 times worse.
And going on forever. Is there a solution? Is there a way that this can stop?
I'm going to say, in all honesty, there is not a perfect solution, and that is why this has gone on for so long, and it's why I don't see a resolution anytime soon. There might be an uneasy truce, and at the moment we've seen that uneasy truce has been trampled, and we're talking about, this is an unprecedented scale. Not since the Yom Kippur War in the 1970s has there been anything on this scale. So you're talking about, for most people, never in living memory have they experienced this kind of a scale. I mean, there's a reason that Israel is describing itself as at war.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about coordinating a coordinated attack where they're firing somewhere in the region of between 2,500 and 5,000 rockets at Israel, specifically to overwhelm their missile defense system. And there's always been these missile strikes. It's why the Iron Dome system exists to protect Israel. But it's almost like they've watched what's happened in Ukraine, where Russia has used huge waves of drones and missiles, knowing that whilst the air defences are able to deal with a number of them, if you overwhelm them, some will get through. So we're seeing, for the first time in a long time, people being killed in places like Tel Aviv. And Tel Aviv is a long way from places like the Gaza Strip. It's a long way. It's like a world apart. It's a bustling metropolis, very dynamic, very Western, and that would be like suddenly finding that Putin's missiles were raining down on Manchester. It would be that kind of a shock.
I am so glad you've brought up Russia and Putin. Are you aware of the meetings between Russian officials and Hamas?
I'm not aware, but I know that Iran has been certainly involved with Russia, and there is a suspicion, although I've not seen any firm proof offered, that Iran has in some way been involved, possibly not at a level of actually orchestrating the attacks, but certainly in training Hamas and providing military intuition as to what they need to do.
Well, what I've been hearing, and I can't confirm a lot of this, I will say straight off that a lot of this is information that's coming out that's quite garbled, and not necessarily all of the information is there. But I have seen a fair amount of evidence coming, a lot of it being broadcast by former MPs in the UK that I trust to have done their due diligence, saying that Russian high-ups have met with Hamas and may be supplying captured missile technology that they captured in Ukraine, as in it's Western missiles that are being fired at Israel now.
I have to say, I've not seen this particular avenue. There's definitely a change in tactics from Hamas,
and that's
this is
why,
not how they've operated before.
No, they're more homegrown stuff. It's usually they make IEDs and things like that.
Yeah, this is a very coordinated attack. So you're talking about thousands, multiple thousands of insurgents in a coordinated, all going at once along quite a long border, actually using heavy machinery to smash holes in the border fence, and then all going through at once with a unified objective, which is a level of organisation which Hamas has never shown in the past.
And this is why I'm bringing up Russia. Russia always, and this goes back to the formation of Russia. Russia has a massive land border that's essentially a great open plain. So they can't defend themselves from an all-out attack. So Russia's main form of defense has always been to destabilize Europe so that a coordinated attack on Russia couldn't happen. It goes back to Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, and all of them. This kind of technique is exactly what Russia does. Europe has been supplying Ukraine. So destabilise Europe by forming a second front and diverting attention.
And it is an interesting point that Israel has certainly promised. I don't know whether it's been delivered and become up and running, but they promised the Iron Dome missile defence system to Ukraine.
They did, yes.
And this is now where we're in the realms of speculation at this point. I don't want to say this out as fact, and
I fully agree. Once again, we are having a discussion about possibilities.
But it would be in Putin's benefit if Israel now felt that it needed to keep those systems to protect itself, rather than transferring them to Ukraine. And likewise, if a system has already been provided to Ukraine, it will need reloading with more ammunition. And if that supply of ammunition then gets cut off because Israel says, hold on, we need this to protect ourselves, that would be of benefit to Putin. So, it's very easy to try and join the dots and add 2 + 2 and come up with 7.
That is true,
but
yes.
It would be of benefit to Putin that this happens. But, we've also seen lone wolf style attacks elsewhere. So, for example, in Egypt, an Egyptian police officer shot 2 Israeli tourists and their tour guide, and this is believed to have been as a result, because Hamas has perpetrated this terrorist incursion, it's kind of enabled people who had sympathies to act on their own. Historically, Egypt and Israel, they do share a land border.
They've been friends, kind of.
No, Yom Kippur War involved Egypt attacking...
Yes, it did, but Egypt and Israel have had a peace treaty since then.
They've kind of had a truce. I wouldn't say that they were happily at peace. It's like, again, there's a lot of tensions in this area, and Egypt and Israel have kind of, it's like there's more of a, like we won't look at you if you won't look at us sort of thing.
So it's a bit like the kind of peace that Britain and France had for most of the Middle Ages.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you don't rock the boat, we won't rock the boat. So I wouldn't say they were friends, they just found a way to live adjacent to each other.
Which is exactly what we should be aiming for most places. Like, I'm not going to be the kind of hippie free love person who says everyone can learn to love each other. I don't think that's possible. There are people I don't like that I wouldn't want to hang out with. There are lovely people like you don't like that are in a similar boat, and the same way towards us.
It doesn't mean you like.
But we can learn to live together by just saying, right, you're still there, we're still there. Is there that kind of situation? What I want to really say is, if we took out Hamas, would peace be possible?
I think the thing about Hamas is that they are through and through effectively a terrorist organisation.
Exactly, which is why I'm saying if we take them out, can we get peace?
I think you could get a truce, but you see, Hamas is more like dealing with, say, the IRA. They're through and through a terrorist organisation.
But we did get peace for a while in Ireland.
Yes, yeah, but that was more a case of dealing with the people rather than the terrorists, and squeezing the terrorists out so that they weren't seen as being welcome by both sides. And you have to remember that Hamas is not the government of Palestine.
Absolutely, it never has been.
Yeah, so you're looking about going back historically, people like Yasser Arafat, the PLO, and they were the government, but they always struggled that they had people like Hamas, and then there was Hezbollah in Syria, who were much more militant, whose sworn objective was to wipe out Israel. And, they had the problem that, how do you compete with that? It would be like saying that the Labour Party is this broad church of people where at one end you will have people who have almost communist tendencies, and then you've got the people who are much more towards the middle ground. And it's like, how do you unify that to work together? And that's on a much more extreme basis. That's kind of what the Palestinian authorities were faced with. And quite often they ended up, they were trying to broker a deal with Israel and such like. But with these hardliners go, well, you don't speak for us sort of thing. We've seen it time and time again where the Hamas terrorists will launch rockets at Israel from buildings, knowing full well that Israel's policy is to then destroy that building. And knowing full well that effectively they're coming and standing on your roof. It's not their apartment block, but they're using it as a platform to fire rockets at Israel, knowing full well that your house is now going to be demolished as a result of their actions. And, that's the kind of thing that I see a lot, that it kind of uses the everyday people who all they want to do is go about living their life, bringing up a family, go to work, making a better life for themselves. And it's forcing them into a conflict that they don't necessarily want to be a part of. And unfortunately, when these people see Israel's just demolished their apartment block because Hamas terrorists fired a rocket from the roof, it actually then makes them quite hostile towards Israel, as you would be.
Which is exactly why they do it.
Which is kind of what Hamas is doing to foster this sense of, like, look at them, they're evil, look at what they've done. But, I have to declare an interest. I've got friends who live in Israel.
I'll declare an interest as well. I am a member of the Conservative Friends of Israel. I am pro-Israel. I will not say that that's a not biased position, but at the same time, that's the position I've come to.
Yeah, I've spent the last, since the attacks, trying to track down friends in Israel, and making sure that they're all right and actually being quite worried about them. And, this terrorist attack has been timed to match up with, just like in the Yom Kippur War, a time when there'd be festivals, religious festivals in Israel, the idea being catching people off guard. And one of the things that they attacked was a big music festival, the Supernova Festival.
A civilian target.
Absolutely civilian target, and there is video footage of these terrorists actually gunning people down, hunting people down who are hiding in copses of trees, and actually just going from tree to tree, murdering people. There's no other word for it. Gunning people down who are getting in their cars and trying to get away. And a large number of the people that they've taken hostage were taken, it seems, from this festival. And you're talking about a lot of young people out just partying, having a good time. Nothing to do with politics. And actually, by nature of this festival, it's a bit like, something like Glastonbury or Tea in the Park. This is a festival that also drew people from around the world. So that's why we ended up with UK citizens, American citizens being kidnapped. And this is something which, let's not beat around the bush here. Civilized people don't kidnap citizens and hold them as hostage.
Absolutely.
That is 100% the work of terrorists.
And given that this is essentially a war on terror,
yes,
at what point, given that America has repeatedly 100% backed Israel's right to exist, at what point do Americans, and probably us as well, go in to help?
I don't think we will. The war in Ukraine has depleted a lot of military hardware. And you could argue that in some respects, Hamas has maybe seen, maybe this is nothing to do with Iran. Yes, Iran's cheering it on, but maybe it's nothing to do with Iran. Maybe it's nothing to do with Russia. This is simply opportunism. They see that actually everywhere is stretched. Nobody's gonna come in all guns blazing on Israel's side because they physically do not have the hardware to do it. Are we seeing how World War III starts, possibly between Ukraine and now another front, you could argue, is opening up between Israel and the Gaza Strip? This then becomes a proxy war for lots of other powers who effectively back certain sides. We've seen that before. And eventually people get drawn in. Is this how World War III starts?
I would like to say no, because I would hope that people are smarter than that. We know what I'm sorry, but
have you met people?
I know you're laughing, but we all know how World War III ends.
Yeah, the problem is it's not like the Second World War now. We have horrific weapons that make the kind of weapons in World War II seem tame.
And that's why I think it's not going to end up being World War III. I think it's going to be a proxy war, probably. But I'd prefer if we could find an actual peaceful solution.
Yeah, and the thing is that, somebody like Putin has nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons.
But I don't think that either will shoot them.
I've not finished. You won't see, the war in Ukraine has been going on for over a year. Putin keeps making threats, but he has not used a single nuclear weapon. Why? Because he's frightened of the consequences.
Yes.
Nobody dares use them. And the reality of nuclear weapons is that actually the first country to use a nuclear weapon against another power will actually find the rest of the world unites against them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the cause is, you immediately become the bad guy.
Yeah. Because
I honestly believe that we, as a world, have a moral and ethical... how can I put this? It's a requirement. It's a necessity.
It's
a duty. Yeah, we have a moral and ethical duty to remove whoever launches these things.
Yeah.
We know what the consequences of these things are, and if you're thinking of using them, you have to go.
Yeah, and I think the unspoken thing is everybody looks nervously at China. Not because they're expecting China to attack, but because China currently almost sits on the fence But I think it's very clear to Putin that if he used a nuclear weapon, China would say no more.
Yes.
And if there's all this nonsense with North Korea trying to get nuclear weapons, I think the reality is that if North Korea created a nuclear weapon and used it against, be it Japan or South Korea, China would probably quietly wander over the border and would go, right, I'm sorry, you're not fit to run a country, and
everyone else would back them.
Yeah,
because the moral duty. I honestly believe in this, and it's the same thing. Again, everyone's worried of China. China takes a long-term view on anything. You can't just look at what's happening now or what's happening last week. China takes the long view. I remember one thing that always comes to mind with politics. Mr. Chinese ambassador, what do you think of the French Revolution? Oh, it's too early to say.
Yeah.
That's China's view on anything.
But nuclear weapons, it's like one big Mexican standoff in a way.
Yeah.
And nobody dares be the first one to pull the trigger because they won't be the person left standing at the end.
That's it. I think we've gone very much off the original topic. How can we get peace here? What is the way that we can do it?
To say that there's a solution would be very flippant. There are a great many people more qualified than us that have tried for nearly 100 years to broker a lasting peace.
But this is the thing. I don't see it. Maybe I am a bit of an idealist at certain times, but who was the guy who took Israel that Richard I was fighting against?
Oh, that wasn't Suleiman of the Turks, or am I thinking of somebody?
No, it's someone else. Did begin with an S, though. He was a Muslim guy. And I wish I could remember his name because it's important. When he was in charge of Israel and the Holy Land, Jews and Christians were welcome. And I won't say everyone lived in harmony, because no one lives in harmony ever, but everyone was tolerated.
But just because you didn't like your neighbour didn't mean you were chucking a brick through their window.
That kind of situation is what I would like to see. And I think the majority of people would like to see, where people are just able to get by because everyone just lets everyone else live. That's what I'd like to see. How do we get to that?
I think it's going to take many generations of hard work because there's such a level now of distrust between Israelis, between Palestinians. There's huge distrust of each other, and that is a distrust that will not abate in this generation or indeed the next generation. You're talking about this is something that would have to be carefully engineered to simmer down over 100 years before you would stand a chance to be at that kind of level.
Jenny, thank you for coming on the show again.
Yeah,
I know that you're busy, but thank you for giving us your time.
I just want to stress we are very off-piste for things, and that people will shout together, "How dare you have views of a political nature?" But and I don't profess to be an expert on the subject. This is just somebody who has friends out in Israel and has read books, and that's probably actually a laughable qualification. But
it's a lot more than most people. Like I said, I have friends there, and I'm a member of a group that is pro-Israel. I don't know enough, which is why I wanted someone on who knew more, so that I could ask the questions that a lot of people that are in my position would have asked.
So this is should be taken as the view of somebody on the outside looking in, who's tried to find out a bit more than most.
Yes. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I think that covers everything that we really wanted to say on that topic for now, but there will be more, and we'll keep talking about this as long as we need to. But there are other things coming out. For example, HS2 has been officially cancelled, and during the cancellation, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said that, well, the money that's been saved, it'll go on other projects in the north and the Midlands and the south. In other words, the money that was going to go for the second leg of HS2, which would have been in the north, is going to go to the south. More money going back to the London bubble. Not just that, though. Some of the projects that he said would be funded with this extra money have already been built, and two of them, like the Leamside line in Durham, already cancelled. Cancelled within 24 hours, one of them, and within a couple of days for another. This is the kind of problem that just plagues government in the UK at the moment. I would have said this is why we can't have nice things, but I think we all know that we just don't get nice things because no one builds nice things. But this is the problem that we have in the UK at the moment. Oh, we can't do this, so let's make it sound better when we cancel it by saying we'll do all these other things and then get rid of them when people aren't looking. Well, we are looking. And that's the thing. You've got to understand that we see what's going on here. We know you're trying to play us. Just do what you said you were going to do. Bring some new business to the north. Bring some new developments to the north. Bring high-speed rail to the north so that we can all benefit from essentially bringing Britain back and doing big projects. But no, we can't have that because our Prime Minister only believes in the south. And he's gone on record with it. Well, technically he wasn't on record. He got overheard on a recording saying that you want to bring funding back to the south, and that's exactly what he's done. When people tell you who they are, listen. Oh, and don't expect Keir Starmer to be any better. That's the problem that we have in the UK, just like in many countries. Which of these problem people would you trust more? I wouldn't trust either of them as far as I could throw them, and that's a big problem. However, just because I don't like them doesn't mean I would go out and do a stupid protest. You may have seen the glitter that was thrown over Keir Starmer at the Labour Party conference. I can't back that. What was this guy protesting against? Who knows? What was he protesting against? Who cares? He threw glitter on a man and stormed a stage. That's just stupid. If that's what your view of protesting is, whatever your cause, no one's going to back it, because clearly this cause is backed by stupid people who throw glitter on people they don't like. So it can't be a serious topic. And that's what you do. This is why it's so easy to believe when people say that, oh, big oil interests are funding some of these eco-loons. Yeah, I can understand that that's probably happening, because there's no way someone who's actually interested in the environment would disrupt the life of people in the ways that these people do. Some of the things they do, like painting near the Nazca lines in Peru, or sitting in front of a load of milk and stopping people buying milk. That was a big thing for a while. Or walking slowly down a road and getting in everyone's way and getting in the way of ambulances. Anyone who does all of this, you're not getting people on side, you're just turning people away. So it's very easy to see why it becomes easy to believe that it's a false flag, essentially. That's what the type of protest throwing glitter is. It takes away from your actual message and makes people think that whoever's backing you or whoever supports what you support is an idiot because you act like an idiot. It doesn't work. Stop it. But that's not the only thing, is it? Because I've got something here and I need to talk to you about this. Vaping consultation out this afternoon, says Natasha Clark. Who's Natasha Clark? She's the political editor at LBC, so she probably knows what she's talking about. The consultation this afternoon will include the restricting of flavours of vapes, point-of-sale displays, regulating packaging and presentation, considering restricting the supply and sale of disposable vapes. I think we can all back that. If you want a vape, you shouldn't be using disposable stuff. We have environmental issues. Recycle, please. Don't just throw things away. Reuse if you can. Whether regulations should extend to non-nicotine vapes. Why? Why? That's like saying, oh, smoking's bad, so we'll stop selling those chocolate cigarettes that used to be around in the 80s and early 90s. Why? I get that they look like the thing, but just because bad shape doesn't mean bad thing. And a consultation looking at the affordability of vapes. Adjustments to the smoking plan would make it an offence to buy and sell cigarettes if you're born after the 1st of January. By cigarettes, they include cigarettes, cigarette papers, hand-rolled tobacco, cigars, cigarillos, pipe tobacco, shisha, chewing tobacco, heated tobacco, nasal tobacco, and herbal smoking products. Okay, so you can't buy or sell menthols. There's no tobacco. It's just menthol. Why? This is the thing that always annoys me. And again, Labour will not change this because Labour loves the nanny state as much as our current Conservative government. They're pretty much two sides of the same coin on this. If you are telling adults that they don't have the same rights to purchase things as other adults, then you are creating a two-tier society. Let's say a person is a year younger than me. I can go into a shop and I can buy a packet of cigarettes, but the person who's a year younger than me can't? Could you tell the difference between us? Are we both going to have to show our ID to buy cigarettes? And then I can have them, but they can't. But here's the thing. That's about the purchase and sale. What about gifting? If I buy cigarettes and then go outside and like, happy birthday, here's a packet of cigarettes, to the person who couldn't buy them, have I just committed an offence, or have they forgotten that this is going to happen? I don't know. We'll have to look into that more. However, here's the other question that I have to go for. Why would I, under those circumstances, have more rights than the other person? Because that's what this is creating. We're creating a state where I, as an older person, have more rights than a younger person. But we're both still adults. We're both still at the age of majority. We can both buy a house. We can both buy a car. We can both drive a car. We all have the same rights, except I can buy cigarettes. Therefore, we don't have rights that are equal. Therefore, we are not an equal society. What happened to equality? What happened to common sense? You want to phase out cigarettes? Fine. Phase them out for everyone. Don't turn it into a situation where if I buy a load of cigarettes and just store them in my house, and then people come round and, oh, well, come on in. Have you brought a bottle? Here's a packet of cigarettes as a gift. I won't say anything if you don't. Then I'm essentially exchanging that bottle for cigarettes. But you don't know, because I'm in my house and no one's going to tell you. Here's the situation you're making. That's just the nice version. The other version is you're creating a black market. You're creating prohibition, which never works because crime happens. You fill the void with criminals and organised crime. This will not make anything any better. We know that from all of the drug bans. How many people have you smelt this week who are wandering around stinking of cannabis? But cannabis is illegal in the UK. It's not going to work, is it? Because you can smell. No one's stopping them. No one's going to be checking your ID if you're sat in a house having a cigarette. How are they going to do it? This kind of stupidity grabs headlines, yes. Makes people who are backing anti-smoking stuff say, oh, that's great. But it doesn't actually work because no one's going to enforce it, because we don't have the amount of people to do that. It's the same with prohibition again. Here's the office that deals with the sale and regulation of alcohol. We've got like 5 people here. Go and deal with this entire city. How? And that's what's going to happen here. We haven't got enough police. We already know we haven't got enough police, so they're not going to prosecute everyone. They can't. It's the same with the sale of cigarettes to children now. We know it happens. Sometimes people are caught. Most of the time they're not. It's not going to work. Besides the fact that it's completely immoral. If I have more rights than another adult, then we are not an equal society. That is immoral. This will not work. It'll get fought against in the courts, and we'll see what happens there. Probably we'll find that it's a violation of the Human Rights Act because you are giving more rights to one group than to another based on age, and that's a protected category already. Guys, this is not workable. That's been the Political Ring. I'd love to hear your comments on any of the topics that we covered today. I know it's been a different setup than we had last time, but I think we covered the main thing in depth, and that was exactly what I wanted to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything. Let's have a conversation. Remember to keep it civil, though, because we are, at the end of the day, all adults, and we should be able to talk to each other as adults. Until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson. Take care. Have a great day. If you like the show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help create future videos. That's patreon.com/Zoe Kirk-Robinson. And I've got an extra special thanks going out to Chief89, Sam Yates, Retro Mickey82, Mo Henry, and George Botterini. Thank you so much, guys.